The cold wind swept through the city park, its barren trees swaying under a gray sky. James Carter, a man in his late 50s, sat hunched on a worn wooden bench. His weathered face peeked out from under a tattered knit cap, and a cart full of mismatched belongings stood parked beside him. He clutched an old thermos, his gloved hands trembling slightly from the cold. A mother walking with her young child glanced at him and pulled her son closer, whispering something as they passed by. James didn't seem to notice. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, lost in a world far removed from the park's bustle. Suddenly, the sound of heavy boots crunching on gravel broke the stillness. Officer Miller, a young cop with a smug grin, approached with two other officers trailing behind. Miller swung his baton lightly as if it were a toy. Miller, well, what do we have here? Sir, you can't just camp out here like it's your personal backyard. James looked up slowly, his eyes calm but weary. He said nothing, returning his gaze to the horizon. Miller, what, cat got your tongue? I'm talking to you. Officer Daniels, a rookie, chuckled nervously, not quite sure how to react. Officer Rodriguez, the third in the group, frowned slightly but stayed quiet, his eyes scanning James's belongings. Miller, you can't just sit around here and make the park look bad for everyone else. People pay taxes for this place, you know. So pack it up. James sighed, his voice low and measured. James, I've seen worse than this cold wind, officer. Do what you gotta do. Miller, oh, we will. Daniels, grab his stuff. Daniels hesitated but moved toward the cart. As he reached for it, a small box fell out, spilling its contents onto the ground. Among the few scattered items was an old military medal, its gold edges dulled with age. Rodriguez, wait a minute. Rodriguez crouched down and picked up the medal. His expression shifted, a mix of curiosity and recognition. Rodriguez, this is a Distinguished Service Cross. Where'd you get this? James's lips pressed into a thin line, his eyes briefly flickering with something unreadable. James, earned it. The wind seemed to still for a moment as Rodriguez stared at the medal, his hand lingering on it. Miller crossed his arms, rolling his eyes. Miller, oh, come on, Rodriguez. He probably picked it up at a pawn shop or something. Don't let him fool you. Rodriguez ignored him, standing up and holding the medal closer. Rodriguez, this is no pawn shop trinket. You don't just pick up one of these. Sir, what's your name? James hesitated, his voice quieter this time. James Carter. Rodriguez's brow furrowed, and he stepped back to pull out his phone. As he typed something in, Miller turned to James with a smirk. Miller, you're really sticking to this story, huh? What's next, you saved the president or something? Before James could respond, Rodriguez spoke up, his tone sharp and incredulous. Rodriguez, James Carter, recipient of the Distinguished Service Cross, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart. Served in Afghanistan. You're kidding me. Miller's smug grin faltered. Daniels looked between the two men, his face pale. Miller, wait, you're telling me this guy's legit? Rodriguez looked at James, his expression now filled with respect, and a trace of shame. Rodriguez, sir, is that you? James Carter. James nodded slowly. James, was me. Long time ago. The silence that followed was louder than the wind, and for the first time that day, the officers truly saw the man before them. The atmosphere grew heavier as Officer Rodriguez held the medal in his hand, the realization settling in like a slow wave. Officer Miller, still unwilling to admit fault, tried to brush off the situation. Miller, all right, so he's a vet. Doesn't change the fact that he's loitering. Rules are rules. Rodriguez, this isn't just a vet, Miller. Do you even know what this medal means? Rodriguez's voice was sharp, his usual laid-back demeanor replaced by an uncharacteristic intensity. Miller, a medal's a medal. Big deal. Doesn't mean he gets to camp out here like Rodriguez, it means he risked his life, probably saved others. You don't just hand these out. Rodriguez turned back to James, his tone softening. Rodriguez, Mr. Carter, you're the James Carter who was in Ghazni province, right? The one who James was. Not anymore. James shifted uncomfortably, pulling his coat tighter around him as if it could shield him from the weight of his past. Daniels, wait, what happened in Ghazni? Rodriguez glanced at the rookie, then back at James. Rodriguez, he saved his unit. They were pinned down in an ambush, no way out. Carter here charged the enemy line, took out the gunner, and held them off long enough for reinforcements to get there. They say he went back into the line of fire to pull 2 of his men out after they were hit. Daniels' eyes widened, his earlier nervous chuckle replaced with awe. Daniels, that's incredible. Miller scoffed, though his voice lacked its usual bravado. Miller, yeah, well, that doesn't explain why he's out here now. If he's such a hero, why is he? Miller trailed off, unable to finish the sentence as James looked up, his piercing gaze silencing the officer. James, why am I homeless? Why am I sitting on this bench with nothing but a cart full of junk? James's voice was calm but laced with a quiet fury. James, because medals don't pay for therapy. Because you can't trade a salute for a place to sleep. And because once the uniform comes off, people stop seeing you altogether. Rodriguez flinched, the weight of James's words hitting him hard. Rodriguez, that's not right. You deserve better than this. James gave a bitter chuckle, shaking his head. James, deserve's got nothing to do with it. I'm just another face in the crowd now. Doesn't matter what I did back then. Miller, look, I didn't know, okay? How was I supposed to know? James, you weren't. Because you didn't bother to ask. The wind picked up, cutting through the silence like a blade. Rodriguez turned to Miller, his jaw tight. Rodriguez, we messed up today, big time. And it's on us to fix it. Miller, what do you mean, fix it? What are we supposed to do? Rodriguez, we start by getting him off this bench. Rodriguez crouched down in front of James, looking him square in the eye. Rodriguez, Mr. Carter, let us help you. Let me help you. I know some people at the VA, and I can make some calls. We'll get you the support you need. James studied him for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he gave a small nod. James, you really want to help? Start by seeing people like me. All of us. Not just when we're wearing the uniform. Rodriguez nodded, determination hardening his features. Rodriguez, you have my word. The park was eerily silent as Officer Rodriguez finished reading aloud the details of James Carter's military service from his phone. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Rodriguez, Distinguished Service Cross, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. Served 2 tours in Afghanistan. Led his team out of an ambush and saved 6 lives. 6 lives. He looked up, his gaze hard as it swept over Officer Miller and Officer Daniels, his fellow officers frozen in place. Rodriguez, do you have any idea what it takes to earn one of these medals? To do what he did? Miller, usually quick with a retort, stared at the ground, his jaw tight but his face pale. Daniels, the rookie, shifted uncomfortably, his hands clenched at his sides. Rodriguez, we mocked him. We treated him like he was nothing, like he was beneath us. This man gave everything for people he didn't even know, and we couldn't even give him the dignity of a second look. Rodriguez's voice cracked slightly, but he held firm, turning his attention fully to Miller. Rodriguez, and you, Miller. You're supposed to be an officer of the law. What part of protect and serve did you forget today? Miller opened his mouth, but no words came out. He glanced at James, who was standing silently by his cart, his expression unreadable. Finally, James stepped forward, his movements slow but deliberate. He looked directly at Rodriguez, then at Miller and Daniels, his voice steady and calm but filled with an unmistakable weight. "James, you want to know what it takes to earn one of these medals? It takes sacrifice. It takes watching the people you care about fall around you and knowing there's nothing you can do to stop it. It takes coming back home to a country that calls you a hero one day and forgets you exist the next." His gaze shifted to the growing crowd that had gathered, their murmurs falling silent as his words reached them. "James, when you're out there, wearing the uniform, everyone sees you. They salute you, they thank you for your service. But once you take it off, once you're no longer standing on that front line, you disappear. You're just another face in the crowd, just another man sitting on a bench in a park, trying to stay warm." James paused, the wind carrying the sound of his breath as he steadied himself. "James, and if you're lucky, real lucky, you don't end up like me. You don't lose everything you had trying to put your life back together. You don't wake up every day wondering if today's the day someone finally sees you." Rodriguez's shoulders sagged, and even Miller looked stricken, his earlier bravado nowhere to be found. Daniel's eyes glistened as he blinked hard, visibly shaken by the monologue. James took a step closer, his gaze locking onto Miller's. "James, you asked why I'm out here. Why someone like me ends up on this bench. The real question, officer, is why any of us do. And why you're so quick to look away when we do." The tension in the air was electric, the weight of James's words pressing down on everyone present. Rodriguez finally spoke, his voice low but resolute. "Rodriguez, he's right. And we're going to fix this, starting now." James glanced at him, his expression softening slightly, but his guard remained up. "James, then don't just fix it for me. Fix it for the next man on the bench, the next woman in line, the next soldier coming home. You think you can do that?" B. Rodriguez nodded firmly. Rodriguez, "Yes, sir. We can." As James stepped back, the crowd began to stir, whispers of agreement and admiration spreading among the onlookers. For the first time in years, James felt something stir within him too, a glimmer of hope. As the last of James's words settled over the crowd, Officer Rodriguez stepped forward. His voice was steady, but there was no mistaking the sincerity in his tone. "Rodriguez, Mr. Carter, on behalf of all of us, I'm sorry. For everything. For the way we treated you and for not seeing you, the real you, sooner. We can't undo what happened today, but we can make sure it doesn't happen again." He looked over his shoulder at his colleagues. Miller and Daniels nodded reluctantly, their expressions a mix of guilt and determination. Miller, I was out of line. I've got no excuse for the way I acted. I'm sorry. Daniels, me too. We owe you better. And we're going to do better. Rodriguez turned back to James. Rodriguez, let us help you, Mr. Carter. We can get you connected to some resources, find you a safe place to stay, and make sure you get the support you deserve. James studied them for a moment, his expression unreadable. Finally, he gave a small nod. James, if you're serious, then okay. But not just for me. If we're going to do this, we're doing it for all the others out there who need the same thing. Community impact. True to his word, Rodriguez got to work. Within days, he spearheaded the creation of a new community initiative called Operation Second Chance, aimed at supporting homeless veterans. The program started small, organizing resource drives for clothing, blankets, and food. But as word spread, local businesses, nonprofits, and residents pitched in, offering everything from temporary housing to job training. The park where James had been mocked became a hub of activity, a symbol of transformation. Rodriguez worked tirelessly, speaking at community meetings and rallying support. Every time he stood before a crowd, he shared James's story, using it as a call to action. Rodriguez, this isn't about fixing one mistake. It's about changing how we see and treat the people who've given everything for us. We owe them more than words, we owe them action. Underscore 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 underscore. James's role. James was no longer just a man on a bench. He became the face of Operation Second Chance, his story inspiring others to step forward and share their own. At one event, standing before a crowd of hundreds, James spoke with a voice that was no longer weary but strong and resolute. James, I spent years thinking no one saw me, that my story didn't matter. But it does. They all do. Every vet out there has a story worth hearing, a life worth fighting for. And if this initiative means one less person feels invisible, then it's worth it. He met the eyes of the officers standing in the front row, nodding at Rodriguez. James, it's not about the past. It's about what we do now. And I'm ready to do my part. Over time, James's advocacy extended beyond the community. He was invited to speak at city councils, veteran organizations, and even a congressional hearing on homelessness among veterans. His story became a catalyst for change, igniting conversations and actions at every level. Underscore 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 underscore. Closing scene, new beginnings. Months later, James stood in the park where it all began, now transformed into a vibrant community space with a plaque honoring local veterans. Beside him, Rodriguez and a group of volunteers were organizing a resource fair for homeless individuals. A young boy approached James, pointing at the medal pinned neatly to his jacket. "Boy, are you a hero?" James crouched down, smiling gently. "James, no, kid. I'm just someone who didn't give up. And neither should you." As the boy ran off, James stood, looking out at the bustling fair. For the first time in years, he felt something he thought he'd lost forever, a sense of purpose. The park where it all began was unrecognizable. What was once a cold, barren space was now vibrant and full of life. Tents and booths lined the walkways, offering resources for veterans, job placement programs, mental health services, and housing assistance. The sound of laughter and conversation filled the air as families mingled with volunteers. At the center of it all stood James Carter. Gone were the tattered coat and weathered face. He was clean-shaven, dressed sharply in a navy blue suit, with the gleaming Distinguished Service Cross pinned proudly to his chest. His posture was confident, his presence commanding. A podium had been set up in front of a large gathering. James adjusted the microphone and scanned the crowd, his eyes briefly meeting Officer Rodriguez, who stood in the front row alongside Officer Daniels and even Officer Miller. All three were now active members of Operation Second Chance, their expressions a mix of pride and respect. "James, good morning, everyone. It's been quite a journey to stand here today, and I'm humbled by what this community has accomplished. Months ago, I was sitting on that bench over there, wondering if my life still mattered. Today, I know it does, and not just mine, but every veteran's life." The crowd erupted in applause, but James held up a hand to quiet them. "James, this isn't just about me. It's about all the men and women who served, who sacrificed, and who now need us to stand up for them the way they once stood for us. I want to thank every person here who made that possible, especially Officer Rodriguez and his team. You didn't just see me, you saw the bigger picture. And because of that, lives are changing. James stepped back from the podium as the crowd gave him a standing ovation. Rodriguez stepped forward and shook James's hand, leaning in to speak. "Rodriguez, you're the real hero here, James. Thank you for letting us be part of this." James smiled, his voice low but steady. "James, takes all of us, Rodriguez. This is just the beginning." The plaque unveiling. As the applause died down, a small group gathered near a new bronze plaque installed at the base of the park's largest tree. The plaque bore the inscription, "In honor of all veterans, past and present, who served with courage and sacrifice. May we never forget their stories or their worth. Dedicated to James Carter, whose strength inspired us to see the invisible." James stood silently, his hand resting lightly on the plaque. Around him, children played, veterans exchanged stories, and volunteers handed out warm meals. A young woman approached him, her eyes bright with admiration. "Young woman, Mr. Carter, can I ask, what made you keep going? After everything?" James looked at her, his gaze thoughtful. "James, because the fight doesn't end when the war is over. It just changes. And if I can fight for others the way I fought back then every step forward is worth it." The young woman nodded, her expression determined. As James watched her walk away, he turned back to the crowd, feeling a profound sense of fulfillment. He wasn't invisible anymore, and neither were the countless others he stood for.